Rev up your engines!
Well, Toyota, Subaru, and Mazda are now sealing an alliance. They're planning on making engines that can run on all kinds of stuff. Liquid ammonia, you name it, they're ready for just about anything. They have realized, and Toyota realized it a long time ago, battery electric vehicles are not the near-term solution. Maybe way in the future, if they make solid-state batteries that actually work, that don't cost a small fortune. They're saying, hey, there's all kinds of fuels we can use. Why not make something that can burn gasoline today, maybe ammonia at the same time, switching back and forth, just like a flex fuel car, only it would be more than just ethanol versus gasoline. It would be all kinds of other combinations. And Toyota, Subaru, and Mazda, they got a relationship. Toyota owns a percentage of both of those companies, are working on these engines of the future. They're not just sitting pat and saying, okay, electric motors, that's it, that's the solution. It can be this and that, maybe something else. It can be all kinds of combinations of things. There isn't always just one simple solution. There could be lots of solutions, and if they can make engines that run on various types of fuels, hey, it only makes sense. Whatever one in the area that you're at is there, you could use that. If you were in an area that had ammonia, you could use that. If you were in an area that had hydrogen, you could use that, whatever. It actually makes sense to do a wider range than to stick yourself on one type of fuel alone. Well, here's more bad news for Tesla. They're recalling 375,000 vehicles for power steering problems, that they're not getting the power steering boost. They're shorting out. Now, if you've seen those things, some have those stupid steering yokes. They're not actual steering wheels, right? So you got the steering yoke and you lose the power steering. How are you turning that thing? For his, he wants a space age design. Make it look like you're flying a plane. No, you're driving a car and a wheel. We've used wheels for a long time because they work quite well. Emergency situations, you can keep grabbing the wheel and turning it, right? You ever see big valves? Big valves are round too. You pull to open the valve, to close the valve. They're not little yokey things, right? Well, turns out that some of the circuitry stops working, and it stops working when you're taking off, when you really need the power steering assist, when you're starting to move. You ever notice in a car, if you've ever had a car, the power steering went out. It's very hard to steer when you're going slow and taking off and doing parallel parking. But once you're on a highway, it's okay because you don't need much power steering boost. Well, this breaks at the most inopportune moment, and then you're stuck with this little yoke that doesn't work. Yet another reason not to buy a Tesla. Used to be about a Volkswagen, you thought German quality, great. Well, guess what? Volkswagen is recalling some Atlases and Atlas Cross Sport vehicles because of bad transmissions. Well, guess who makes the transmissions? The transmissions are supplied by Hyundai Transmission Systems, made in Georgia. So you're getting a Volkswagen, you think you have German technology, you're getting a Korean transmission assembled in Georgia. Then it's sent to Tennessee, where they make the Volkswagens, they put in the Volkswagens, and now they're saying they've got problems with them. They didn't build them right inside, and they break down, and they got to replace the transmissions. All I have to say is, don't think you're buying a Volkswagen. You're getting a quality vehicle these days. They make some of the crappiest vehicles out there, and it's been that way for decades. I don't have a single customer in the last 20 years who bought a Volkswagen and then bought another Volkswagen. Most said, that was one of the worst vehicles I ever had. Some said, hey, it ran really good for a couple of years. Then it started to fall apart on me, and I'll never buy another one of these things, right? But you'd think you're buying a Volkswagen Atlas. Well, you're getting Volkswagen quality, Volkswagen German transmission. You're getting a Korean transmission made in Georgia. They want to hide this stuff, right? Well, now the cat's out of the bag because they had to recall these. And when they recall, all of a sudden, okay, where are these transmissions coming from? Oh, they're made by Hyundai in Georgia. They're not made in Germany. They're not even made by Volkswagen. They're made by Hyundai. And they're not known for making the greatest transmissions in the world, let me tell you. I got customers who have transmission problems all the time in those Hyundai. So yet another reason not to buy a Volkswagen. They're not even using German transmissions in some of them. Well, you know, a lot of people whining about cheap Chinese junk. Well, people in China who are buying Volvos are complaining about cheap Chinese junk. And this is hilarious, right? Turns out that in China, Volvo is selling to Chinese people the expensive Volvos with like a 10-speaker sound system that are supposed to be called Bowers and Wilkins speakers. But they're getting cheap Chinese knockoff speakers in them instead. They say Bowens and VVILKS, like Villikins, because they thought the W was two V's, so they put VV instead of W. So the Chinese are even putting cheap knockoffs on the stuff that they're selling to their fellow countrymen as Volvos with a fancy stereo system. Now, the interesting thing is, these are just the speakers in the car. How about the rest of the parts of the cars? Do they have cheap knockoffs on them too? Who would trust them? I wouldn't trust them. Hey, if they're putting cheap speakers in, maybe they're putting in cheap brakes, cheap alternators, who knows, you know? Now even the Chinese have to worry about cheap Chinese knockoffs. You can't make this stuff up. It's unbelievable. Well, I'm sure it's happened to some of you out there. You take your car to the dealer numerous times. They can't fix the noise, and they say, well, that's just normal for that car. Well, I had the same problem with this 2013 Toyota Camry. He took it to 4 Toyota dealers, and they said, oh, no, that's normal. Just live with it, la, la, la. So he takes it to an independent mechanic like me, and the guy says, look, it's a $10 part. It's a spacer and a damper and your electronic power steering, right? The guy gets the $10 kit. He takes apart the electronic power steering assembly. And what does he find? Bunch of broken green pieces, which were the dampener that came in a $10 kit. It had come apart, right? And the dealer was telling me, that's normal. That's that they all do that. Hilarious thing is, a lot of times you're better going to an independent mechanic for one main reason, and we mechanics call it the 3 B's. We didn't buy it, we didn't build it, and we didn't break it. You go to the dealers, they made you buy it, part of the B, right? And they don't want to admit that they got problems, that they don't understand what's happening. In this case, simple piece broke apart, was rattling, driving a guy nuts. $10 part. Take it apart. Took a few hours to take it apart, but the guy knew what it was because he'd seen it before, right? This is why I tell people, the dealerships back in my grandfather's day, you know, like 100 years ago, the dealers had pretty good mechanics. They paid them better than they do today. But today, hey, most of them are just parts changers, and they do whatever the service manager tells them to do. You'd think they would have known it in a Toyota dealer, but no. They didn't. Well, the other day, the Dow dropped 700 points for the worst day of 2025, making a 2-day loss of 1,200 points. Things are starting to get shaky in the stock market. Doesn't bode that well for the economy, but, I mean, let's face facts. You know anything about the history of the stock market? It is a series of booms and busts. Now, it used to be that the bust would come after years and years and years. Now, it's a lot closer together because it blows up so fast. Everybody gets on the gravy train. Oh, these companies are great. Let's blow them up. Let's blow them up. And then people say, hey, that company's a bloated pig. They make junk. And then boom, it goes back down again, right? It's a cycle of booms and busts. And if you invested your money in it, you're not going to like the busts when they come. Because, of course, you're not going to know when the busts are coming. The rich people have it all planned, and they have insider trading, even though they say they don't have insider trading. Of course, it's insider trading, right? They've got information that, oh, gee, this company's in real trouble. Let's get rid of our stock now. We'll pretend that it's good while they fleece people's money. If you remember that big recession that we had years ago that they based on people loaning money on those crazy prime swap derivatives, these companies, this is nonsense. It's garbage. And then all the brokerage firms, everything, they were selling the stuff, saying it's great, it's great. And then at the end, they sold their own personal shares to their clientele saying, yeah, it's great, knowing it's bad, none of it all fell apart, right? Those guys have insider information. You don't. They'll tell you something's great when they know it isn't great. And then you read the small print that says, warning, investing in this, you may lose all your money. Too bad. Right? You got to be leery of these guys. You can't trust them as far as you can throw them, right? And now it's starting to do a drop. Now, who's to know? It may all come back in a few days, but it's not something that's stable. And when it's based on just people's perception of stuff. Well, I perceived I had money yesterday, but I guess today my perception was wrong and the money's gone. I would stay away from that stuff if I were you or anybody out there. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.